As soon as the gate opened, a figure stepped out in front of the car. Standing just beyond the gate was a 21-year-old woman, her hair rough and uncombed. She was holding a staff. She was blind. Her voice was calm, but carried a strange authority as she spoke. "Sir, please, don't go where you are going today. If you leave this gate, danger awaits you," she continued, her milky eyes fixed in his direction. "I see tears. Please, don't go." For a moment, the air grew heavy. Even the gate man looked uneasy. Then Richard burst out laughing. "Are you serious right now? You want to tell me not to go to my meeting? Do you know who I am?" The girl didn't flinch. "It's not about who you are, sir. It's about what's waiting for you. You can ignore me," she whispered, "but you cannot escape what is already waiting. If you don't go back." The morning sun cast a golden glow over the air B&B in Oyo town. Inside the compound, a Toyota Camry purred to life. Mr. Richard Okafor, a tall, handsome Nigerian-American businessman in his early 40s, adjusted his wristwatch as he stepped out of his temporary apartment in Oyo town. His dark suit gleamed, his shoes shone like mirrors, and his confidence filled the air. Today was the day that would make history. He was about to acquire 20 acres of land. A deal that had brought him all the way from Houston back to Nigeria. His cousin had advised him to invest in landed properties, and he saw it as a good idea. "Everything ready?" he asked his driver, sliding into the back seat. He had hired Bayo to drive him around for the period of his stay in Nigeria. "Yes, sir," Bayo replied, bowing slightly. "Good. Let's go," Richard said, smiling at his reflection in the window. He got into the car and Bayo started. It began to roll toward the gate. The air was calm and everything seemed perfect. However, as soon as the gate opened, a figure stepped out in front of the car. "Stop!" Bayo yelled, pressing the brakes hard. The tires screeched. Richard frowned. Standing just beyond the gate was a 21-year-old woman. She was barefoot, dressed in a faded wrapper and loose blouse, her hair rough and uncombed. She was holding a staff. She was blind. "What's going on here?" Richard asked, irritated. "Who's this girl blocking my way?" The gate man ran out immediately. "Olga! She is a known blind girl in this area. She is always seen walking around the neighborhood." Bayo began to horn, asking the girl to step aside so he could drive on. But the girl didn't move. She raised her head, staring blankly toward the car as though she could see through the glass. "Sir, please wind down," Bayo said softly. "She looks like she wants to say something." Richard hesitated, then pressed the button. The glass slid down slowly, and the girl stepped closer. Her voice was calm, but carried a strange authority. "Sir, please don't go where you are going today." Richard blinked. "Excuse me? If you leave this gate, danger awaits you," she continued, her milky eyes fixed in his direction. "I see tears. Please, don't go." For a moment, the air grew heavy. Even the gate man looked uneasy. Then Richard burst out laughing. "Are you serious right now? You want to tell me not to go to my meeting? Do you know who I am?" The girl didn't flinch. "It's not about who you are, sir. It's about what's waiting for you," Richard scoffed. "Listen, young lady. I grew up in the United States. I don't believe in these African superstitions. I'm an educated man, not a villager who trembles at visions and spirits. You can't even see me. How do you know where I'm going?" Her lips trembled slightly, but her voice remained gentle. "Because I see what others cannot. Please, don't go, and don't sign any deal or pay for anything." Richard frowned, his patience wearing thin. "Enough. I don't have time for this nonsense. Get her out of the way." She stood still, unmoving. "You can ignore me," she whispered, "but you cannot escape what is already waiting." Richard glared at her. "Driver, wind up the glass." As the window rose, the girl stepped back, clutching the edge of her wrapper and holding her staff tighter. Bio glanced at Richard through the mirror. "Sir, forgive me for saying this," he began cautiously, "but people talk about that blind girl. They say she sees things before they happen. The last time she warned a man, he laughed too. And—" "Stop right there," Richard interrupted sharply. "You believe in all that superstition too?" Bio swallowed. "I'm only saying what I've heard, sir." "Well, I don't want to hear it. Drive." Bio obeyed without a word. The Toyota Camry rolled forward, splashing dust around the girl's feet as she turned her face toward the sound. She stood still, listening to the fading roar of the car. A faint wind blew through the street, rustling the leaves. She sighed deeply and murmured to herself, "He has chosen his path. He will remember my voice. I hope it won't be too late." The car glided out of the estate and joined the main road. Richard relaxed into his seat, adjusting his designer sunglasses as he glanced at his Rolex. Everything was going according to plan, well, except for that strange blind girl who had appeared out of nowhere. But he refused to dwell on it. Yet his driver could not keep quiet. "Sir, please don't be annoyed," Bio began, voice low and shaky. "That girl, people say she sees things that ordinary eyes cannot see." Richard sighed heavily. "Driver, please, I told you, I don't believe in that nonsense." "But sir, no buts. I grew up in the US. I am educated, logical. Vision is science, not spirits. Let's end the discussion." Bio swallowed his words. "Yes, sir," he whispered, though his fingers trembled slightly on the steering wheel. Richard stared outside the window, annoyed. How can grown people still believe in mystical warnings, he thought. Today was too important for him to entertain such village superstitions. They drove for about 1 hour until Toyota Camry pulled up in front of a building still in Oyo town with Goldcrest Real Estate and Development Limited written on the signboard in front of it. The company logo gleamed boldly above the entrance, giving the building an air of legitimacy. Richard stepped out of the car, sunglasses on, aura confident. As he adjusted his suit, his cousin Samuel emerged from the office with open arms. "Richie, my man!" Samuel exclaimed, pulling him into a warm embrace. "Welcome back to Nigeria. Good you listened to me. You are about to own a serious portion of this city." Richard smiled. They walked into the moderately furnished office and the receptionist ushered them into an office. Moments later, 2 men in tailored suits joined them in the conference room. "This is Mr. Richard Okafor," Samuel announced proudly, "CEO of Okafor Global Holdings, based in Houston." Handshakes followed. Polite smiles were exchanged. One of the men opened a laptop and projected a map onto a screen. "We are offering 20 acres of land on the outskirts of Oyo," he explained. "Perfect for luxury residential and commercial development." Richard leaned forward, Interest sparked. Ownership freehold? Yes, the man replied smoothly. No government interference. Gavri and a sing. Richard nodded. Good. Discussion flowed easily. They talked about price, land boundaries, title documents, and development timelines. Samuel handled most of the local explanations, speaking confidently, too confidently. Finally, they agreed to take Richard to the site for inspection the next day. The meeting ended on friendly terms. As they stepped out of the office, Samuel clapped Richard on the shoulder. "You just secured your future, my brother," he said. They hugged and parted ways. Richard felt unstoppable. He entered the Toyota Camry and sank into his seat, satisfied. "Driver, let's go." They left the real estate office just as evening traffic began to crawl. The city lights flickered on, casting long shadows on the road. Richard leaned back in the car, satisfied, his confidence fully restored. "You see?" he said with a smirk, adjusting his cufflinks. "Nothing happened. No danger. No tears." Bayo kept his eyes on the road. "Yes, sir," he replied softly. Richard laughed. "You almost ruined my morning with fear." "That blind girl driver, please. How can someone who cannot see tomorrow tell me what awaits me today?" Bayo hesitated. "Sir, sometimes the eyes are not what—" "Enough," Richard cut in sharply. "Let's go home. Tomorrow will be a big day." The next morning came bright and clear. By 9 a.m., Richard was already dressed and energized. This time, he felt no trace of doubt. Whatever unease the blind girl planted in his mind had vanished completely. They arrived at the land around mid-morning, vast acres stretching endlessly, red soil rich and untouched. Tall grasses swayed gently in the breeze. The location was perfect. Samuel spread his arms wide. 20 acres, just as promised. Future luxury homes, shopping centres and tech hubs will stand here. Richard nodded, impressed. This will change the skyline. Surveyors walked them through boundary markings. Engineers explained drainage plans. Everything checked out. No missing documents, no suspicious delays. Richard smiled broadly. "I'm satisfied." By afternoon, they were back at the real estate office. Lawyers were present. A well-spoken man introduced himself as Richard's legal representative. He was introduced to Richard by his cousin, Samuel. "He's very good," Samuel said casually. "Handles all my big deals." Richard didn't question it. After all, Samuel was family. He transferred the agreed amount to the company account provided. "Congratulations," the lead lawyer said, smiling. "The land officially belongs to you." Richard smiled, feeling victorious, unaware of the storm brewing. As they walked out, Richard turned to his driver, grinning. "So tell me, my prophet driver, should I still be scared?" Bayo forced a weak smile. "No, sir. Everything has gone well." "I told you," Richard said proudly. "Success doesn't listen to blind fears." Bayo said nothing. They hit the road again. All through the journey, Bayo kept glancing at the mirrors like a hunted man. The sky was shifting into evening. As they continued on the journey, they entered a long stretch of road surrounded by thick bush on both sides. No houses, no shops, just wilderness and shadows. They continued in silence. Then there was a sudden movement in the bush. Bayo tightened his grip. A gunshot tore through the air and some men burst out of the bush. They formed a line across the road. Bang! Bullets hit the road in front of the car, forcing Bayo to slam the brakes. Richard's heart pounded. What? What is happening? Bayo raised his hands. Sir, we are finished. One of the men approached, hitting the window. Open the door now, he barked. Richard froze. His throat dried up. The door was yanked open. Bayo's hands shook as he was dragged out of the car. His legs could barely support him. His breathing became heavy, rushed. 2 other men opened the owner's corner, grabbed Richard and pulled him out, dragging him toward the bush. Bayo stood there shivering, sweat suddenly pouring down his face. His eyes rolled slightly as he tried to steady himself. Then, slowly, his knees buckled. After another bang from the men, he collapsed onto the ground and went still. The men barely spared him a glance. They pulled Richard away from the road, deeper into the bush, while Bayo lay unconscious by the roadside. Everything happened so fast, within 1 minute. No, please, Richard yelled. What do you want? Money? I'll pay anything. The men ignored his plea and continued to pull him deeper into the bush, branches scratching his face. Some seconds later, a car approached the scene and slowed down at the sight of the car and Bayo lying motionless beside the vehicle. Concern quickly replaced curiosity. 2 men stepped down and approached cautiously. Is he okay? One asked, kneeling beside him. They felt his pulse, weak but present. Sweat soaked his clothes and his breathing was shallow. Realizing he was still alive, they waved down help immediately. Within minutes, Bayo was lifted carefully into another vehicle and rushed to the nearest hospital, leaving behind his car by the roadside. Along the way, he drifted in and out of consciousness, mumbling Richard's name, his body responding slowly as though struggling to hold on. At the hospital, nurses acted quickly. A blood pressure check confirmed what many feared: his pressure was dangerously high. He was placed on oxygen and taken into emergency care. As the hospital lights flashed overhead, Bayo slipped into unconsciousness again, unaware that his fate and Richard's had turned sharply in opposite directions on that lonely road. Meanwhile, Richard was being taken through thick forest, feet stumbling over roots and stones. Thorns tore at his expensive suit. Sweat mixed with fear as his lungs burned. Please, he begged hoarsely. I have money, plenty money, dollars, naira, any amount you want. They ignored his pleas. They climbed until the land began to rise. Finally, they reached a lonely hill, silent and eerie. The leader gestured sharply. Sit. Richard collapsed onto the ground, his knees weak. The world spun. Dust coated his palms. His heart thundered as he stared at the men standing over him. They collected his phones and the cash he had on him. Luckily for him, his ATM card wasn't found. It was in his inner pocket. I have family. Please, he whispered. I'll transfer any amount you ask, I swear. He continued to beg. No response. One of the men's phones rang suddenly. He stepped aside, answered quietly, then stiffened. Yes, understood, he said, nodding in understanding. He had received an instruction to end Richard. He hung up and turned back. He signaled to one of the men. But just then, bang, a gunshot rang through the forest. Another followed. Bang, bang. Fear rippled through the men. What's that? Police! Run! They scattered in panic, crashing through bushes, disappearing as quickly as they came. Richard sat frozen, heart almost stopping. Footsteps approached slowly. Out of the bush emerged two elderly hunters, eyes sharp and alert. They stopped when they saw Richard. "Who is he?" one asked. "Looks like city man," the other replied, lowering his gun. Richard broke down completely and began to cry. It was his first ever near-death experience. "They were going to kill me," he sobbed. The hunters exchanged looks. "Stand up," one said calmly. "You are safe now." They lifted Richard gently, supporting his trembling body. The forest breeze brushed his face as they led him away. The two hunters moved with quiet assurance, cutting narrow paths where no path seemed to exist. Richard followed, exhausted, his thoughts tangled and heavy. They reached a small hunter's hut made of mud and wood tucked behind thick shrubs. A fire was lit. One hunter offered him water. Richard drank greedily, his hands shaking so badly that water spilled down his chin. "You are safe here," one of the hunters said calmly, though Richard struggled to understand them. Moments later, the hunters prepared roasted yam and offered him some to eat, which he did without hesitation. After he had eaten, the hunters sat across from Richard. "You," the older one said slowly, choosing his words. "Who are you? How you come this bush?" Richard swallowed. His throat was dry. My name is Richard," he began. He recounted how he had just bought some acres of land before he was kidnapped on his way back to his lodge. The hunters listened with rapt attention, trying to understand his American accent. They murmured softly among themselves. Though they did not fully understand contracts, lawyers, or documents, they understood one thing clearly: wealth invites danger. They eventually showed him into the hut, where he spent the night. Richard stayed with the hunters for 2 days. By the second morning, the older hunter spoke. "We show you road today." Richard felt sudden relief flood his body. Thank you so much." He got ready to leave. They walked for hours until the bush thinned and the sound of distant vehicles returned. Finally, they reached the edge of a dusty road. "From here," one hunter said, pointing. "Town, that way." Richard bowed his head slightly, overwhelmed. "I will never forget this kindness." The hunters watched silently as he flagged down a passerby who helped him after he explained his plight. Moments later, dusty, tired, and hollow-eyed, Richard stepped into a police station and made a formal report. As he sat to give his statement, his voice trembled not from fear alone, but from the growing realization that his nightmare had only just begun. After he finished writing his statement, he hesitated for a moment, then spoke again. "I need to go back to where I'm staying," he said. "But not alone. Things don't feel safe." The officer in charge studied him, then nodded. "We'll assign 2 men to go with you." They drove to the lodge together. Richard moved quickly, packing his clothes, documents, and valuables with shaking hands. The room that had felt comfortable days earlier now felt hostile, like a place that no longer wanted him. The policeman escorted him out. He ordered a cab and thanked the policeman before getting in. As the car pulled away, he leaned back, exhausted, then his heart skipped. By the roadside, near a quiet junction, stood the blind girl. She faced the road, Her cloudy eyes lifted, her posture calm and unshaken, just as before. "Stop!" Richard shouted suddenly. The cab screeched to a halt. He flung the door open and stepped down, his eyes scanning wildly. "Miss," he called, "please!" But the sidewalk was empty. The exact spot where she stood was empty. No blind girl, no passerby, nothing. He swallowed hard, stood still for a few seconds longer, then slowly returned to the cab. "Let's go," he said quietly. But his hands shook all the way to the new hotel. He checked in and went to bed. The next morning, with his ATM card, he got a new phone and returned to the police station. This time, he asked them to accompany him to the real estate office. They arrived at the address he provided. The building stood there, but something was off. The signboard was gone. Inside, the office was half empty. Desks remained, but computers had vanished. Files were missing. The receptionist, Richard remembered, was nowhere to be found. One officer frowned. This place was cleared out recently. Richard felt his knees weaken. He knew immediately that he had been duped. Goldcrest Real Estate had never been real. With trembling fingers, he dialed Samuel's number over and over, but his number remained unreachable. He ordered a cab and drove straight to Samuel's house. The gate was locked. A neighbor came out slowly, eyeing him. "You're looking for Samuel?" the man asked. "Yes," Richard replied urgently. The neighbor shook his head. "He moved out 2 days ago. No forwarding address. Just vanished." Richard stood there, numb. In that moment, everything became clear. The deal, the disappearance, the kidnapping. Richard closed his eyes slowly as tears began to stream down his cheeks. For the first time in his life, he understood what true blindness really meant. Fear settled into him in a way he had never known before. Not the sharp fear of that lonely road, nor the helpless terror of the forest, but a quiet, crawling fear that followed him everywhere. In the hotel room, he double-locked the door. At night, he slept with the lights on. Every unfamiliar sound made his heart jump. The police continued their investigation. Richard returned to the station one last time to give additional information. He sat across the desk and slid his phone forward. "That's him," he said, his voice subdued. "My cousin, Samuel." The officer studied the picture closely. "This will help. We'll circulate it." Richard nodded. "Please, just let me know when you find him." "We will," the officer assured him. "Don't worry." But Richard was worried. He also told them about his driver, whose number he no longer had as his phones were taken. The policeman promised to do a thorough investigation. As soon as he stepped out of the station, he opened his phone and booked the earliest available flight back to the United States. He didn't want to remain in Nigeria another minute longer than necessary. That evening, he sat on the edge of his hotel bed, staring at his packed suitcase. His passport lay on the table beside his phone. Tomorrow, he would be on a plane, far away from strange warnings, fake deals, and disappearing brothers. Yet sleep refused to come. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the blind girl, standing calmly, her cloudy eyes lifted, her voice steady. Very early the next morning, he checked out of the hotel, ordered a cab that took him all the way from Oyo Town to Ikeja, Lagos. He boarded his flight to the US, but his problem only just began. Part 2 is coming, and it will reveal what truly transpired and why some warnings cannot be outrun